Hi, it's me, Dora V here, and today we're gonna talk about episode 3. Is my nature that of the devil? Well, it depends on the vampire. According to D&D, like Dungeons and Dragons, that is, vampires are chaotic evil. I don't know. But I feel like devils are a much different, they're much different than vampires, as in like, the devils are not undead, vampires are, but whereas in, Elder Scrolls, like, just some are okay and some are not, it just depends. But at least, like, early on, he tells Louis, like, their purpose is to enjoy yourself. Well, yeah, I happen to agree. Just like I enjoyed some yum-yum cookies. Yeah, I enjoyed that, you bet. And that's how I ended up fat. And so, then it becomes a question, like Louis talks about, like, who deserves what, just go after the more deserving. And Lestat's trying to say, a snake, for example, doesn't care if the mouse was naughty or nice, but, we're talking about humans and vampires who still have some human characteristics. But, so who deserves what? Does this guy deserve this or that? And the only thing is that one thing I know for sure, it's that Lestat does become a lot more discriminating in who he goes after, but it's much, much later than what you see now. So you're just gonna have to wait for that. Aww. Yeah, too bad. Yeah, but I guess it depends on how far they go with this show. Like, who knows? But I can tell you that later on he does, in fact, he goes after the quote-unquote evildoers, and I guess he decides who that is. Yeah. But, let's see, there is this guy who steals from the unfortunates. Louis points him out, and says steals from people who are already poor. So Lestat just barreled right in, just took him immediately. And all of a sudden, when Louis sees Lestat in action, come on, you know how Lestat is. You've known him long enough to see that Lestat's a bit savage. That's savage. And so Louis, he picks up a cat. It's like, poor Cato. Don't hurt Cato. Oh, people gonna be mad at Louis over that. And screw bunnies, unless you're a fan of bunnies. You're not supposed to kill Catos. No hurt Cato. But I guess to someone like Louis, it's better than any human of any kind. At least he thinks that for a while, that is. But, let's see, he is considered the Dark Prince of Iberville. And I don't know, I think Iberville is like right above the French Quarter, but I thought that was... of course, Dark Prince, huh? Yeah, I guess that, is a bit fitting, and for those of you who know the lore pretty well, Lestat eventually becomes the Brat Prince. And so, and he seems to be fond of that somehow. Well, good for him. I guess because it's totally true, and it doesn't really bother him much. But then again, like, when he became the quote-unquote Brat Prince, it was, he was, just a lot older, basically. And so that's probably why he didn't kill him immediately. So, and then the piano song he was playing at the bar, I recognized that immediately. Like, at least that also plays a violin, if I recall correctly, but I do love that, just the liveliness, how Lestat's so jovial and everything, and just the energy is just so mesmerizing. I mean, Sam Reed nailed it. It just nails it. They all nail their roles. It's just incredible. And the piano song he was playing, I recognize it. It's either Bach or Mozart. One of the two. And it might have been Bach or Handel. It may have been. But I just recognize that piece. I didn't play it on piano. It was guitar. and but I recognize the melody, and it becomes jazz, and it becomes jazz. And I thought that was a really cool scene. It's just that in New Orleans, like in those days, they were into jazz, but it becomes jazz, and it was such a cool change. And I liked that. It was just... But then again, Lestat's that kind of person who could probably sell you a ketchup popsicle when you're wearing white gloves, so he'd probably just end up giving in to him anyway. Yeah, so there. Louis, actually, like, he does his best to fight Lestat, but how long does that last? You'll see. Like, that's all I can tell you. Let's see. Daniel, like, the Eric Bogosian is just perfection on this role. He's so awesome. Like, I do love him. But he does call out Louis, and this was actually discussed on Reddit, like, is this an abusive relationship? And many people say that it is. Like, all I can tell you is that Lestat's the kind of person where you just don't realize you're being trapped until too late. You know, poor Louis. You know, currently trapped, or at least, I mean, obviously he's not in the, he's not in 2022, but he was back then, and to see how long that lasts. But then Daniel says it's fucked off Gothic Romance. Well, he's not entirely off on that. Yeah, it's the Gothic. Yeah, you know, Lestat would love that. He'd probably name his band that. Or a song. Wouldn't put it past him at all. And then they show Louis eating rats, which is very much by the book. In fact, when he's first a vampire, that is pretty much all that he does. And he just eats the rats. He tries to, but eating the animal blood, it's not the same as human blood. It's just, and he learns that the hard way, which is why he has the blood bags, and he has, like, some people he feeds off of, you know, later on. It certainly makes a lot of sense. And then, oh gosh, and I just love how, like, Lestat's saying, so he goes after other people, Louis is jealous, so Louis is like, well, then I can just, you know, have sex with whoever I want, and Lestat's like, well, yes, but of course not, you know. And here I thought that Lestat is so secure, as long as you come back to me. Yeah, sounds great, right? Except Lestat didn't really mean that. He's insecure as hell. And he just wants Louis, that's all he wants. But he still wants to nom. And so, so much for that. And I do feel like Louis is really good at business, and being a vampire helps with his mind-reading abilities. I'm sure it does. And it's just that he is, of course, very much aware that he's still at a disadvantage. They don't know he's a vampire. Oh, one of them finds out, though. That was glorious, and I don't blame Louis. But he does what he can to get rid of this ridiculous ordinance that closes down certain places, you know, like the black ones, because of course, and that is, like, when he was meeting with Jonah, like, he does tell him that, yeah, you know, being in the supply lines, it's definitely better. It's definitely better than the front lines, where you're gonna be killed for a country that sees you as just inferior and you're treated with contempt. In that sense, Louis is right, and in that scene, like, him and Jonah get together. But I'm sitting here like, wow, you know, Louis has the will of a Shaolin monk. It was just, wow, like, he doesn't just outright kill him or make him a vampire. He just doesn't do that. And he does see him years later. And you don't really see that, but you do, however, see him go back to his family. But I'll get to that shortly, because Jonah talks about European sensibilities, and I guess it's like one of those grass is greener kind of things, but I do suspect that, yeah, maybe he might have been better off in Europe. It's just that they have issues of their own, and racism is present over there as well, yeah, especially if you're Jewish or Romani, and he might learn that the hard way. But we'll see. Wonder if we will see Jonas again. I don't know. But at any rate, Louis goes back to his mother, And she's just, I guess, fed up, and they start finding him very suspicious. And the devil walks at night, like, wow, yeah, means that she may have been on to him, which is rather unfortunate. Oh man, that scene was just crazy. I just thought, oh, yikes, yikes. Like, that was all I was thinking, was yikes, yikes. Like, yikes, oh my god, yikes, just yikes. Yeah, that was just crazy, and yeah, I think he's pretty much done with his family, and that's when things start unraveling for him, and then he confronts Lestat, and this is where, like, Lestat's kind of, where you see he's a jealous puppy. Yeah, and he does this, like, mind control thing that makes the soldiers into puppets, and they just kind of puppet their way out of the club, and I immediately thought of Shining Nikki. I was like, wait a second, there are certain people who can do that in Shining Nikki. And I thought that was pretty cool. Like, wow, okay. But I could tell you, like, the scene after that was, like, it's just the acting is extremely intense, but that is how Lestat is, he's intense, and I do appreciate how they make Louis more intense, because I feel like in the movie, Louis wasn't quite like that until later, and then, like, in the book, it was kind of the same way. At least that's kind of how I saw it, at least. But man, the arguing, but yeah, it does, show that Lestat is a jealous bun, in a double standard, huh? But he does point out the difference is that he feels nothing for any of the women he's with, but with Louis he feels everything. So I guess that is the difference, but still, I don't think an open relationship's gonna work too well. And then he goes after the big guy with the mustache, and I really don't blame him. However, it is unfortunate then that things turn out the way they did, but of course it's not surprising, because when you are marginalized, you are playing against a stacked deck, and fighting back is seen as wrong, it's no shock that they do that. But at least that does kind of tell him, you knew this was gonna happen, but I wasn't surprised. I do thought it was a nice touch for Louis to try to coloreds only. Yeah, because how does that feel, huh? To be discriminated on the basis of, say, skin color, or being marginalized, and if you're, say, gay, how does that feel, huh? And all of a sudden it's not okay when marginalized groups do it, it's blah. But man, he just absolutely annihilated that guy and just hung him out there like whites only. Oh my god. But then I'm trying to think if that big lady died. I hope she didn't. She was awesome. I loved her dialogue. She was just so good. Just loved her. But I think he wasn't able to save her. I don't remember. But he does save this girl named Claudia, and I'm like, Claudia? That felt a little sudden to me. Was I missing something here? Because it certainly seemed like I did. I thought I did. I just wasn't really sure. Because I know in the books, Claudia, she's very young. And she was very sick, a fever, and so Louis basically makes her into a vampire, and she becomes part of their family, their daughter or something. But she's actually very, very tormented because she's now stuck in the body of a young girl. But this Claudia seems a little older. But whatever the case, it definitely felt a bit sudden. But she certainly will be a very interesting addition. What a very interesting episode. I found myself just kind of leaning over, I must pay attention to this lots and lots and lots, and I did. I certainly did. And I recommend that you do too. It's just, I recommend you do the same. So, like, overall, like, it definitely is getting better and better and increasingly, like, just good. I mean, I'm a sucker for intensity, so here I am. Like, just wowie. But no hurt catto. At least it's not doggos. Boy, that would cause outrage. And yeah, I think that'll do. It was a fabulous episode as expected. And see you later. Goodbye.